What was something you saw that you were definitely not supposed to see? Story 1. When I was 8 or so, my old nanny/babysitter, choose which you prefer, was showing me a video of her time with her boyfriend in Paris. After it blacks out for a few seconds, it then suddenly cuts to her lying on her hotel bed, completely naked, legs spread, telling her boyfriend to come get it. She jumped out of her seat, tried to cover my eyes, and told me to never tell anyone. I have now told potentially thousands of random strangers. Story 2. I found my dad's will. I was on his computer while he was at work and ended up finding a strangely titled Word document. At first it didn't seem like a big deal because it contained a note to each of his kids. It wasn't until I got to the last one, my youngest brother, that I realized it wasn't just a will. The start of that line read something along the lines of, "If anything is going to make me change my mind now, it's writing this part." I realized I had found my dad's will note. I was about 14 or 15 at the time, and I had no idea how to go about talking to him about it. So I decided just to keep it to myself. And he started buying us gifts and stuff, and I would get really scared, and I just kept it to myself. And I remember one day on the weekend, I woke up in my bed to a loud bang coming from my dad's room. I laid there in bed for probably a half an hour just frozen. And once I worked up the strength, I went to his room and opened the door. He wasn't in the bedroom, and I was so confused until I saw that the bedroom window was open. And what had happened was that there was a gust and the wind had slammed the door shut. But my paranoid brain had heard a gunshot. After that, I was laughing hysterically, and I don't have much memory of the day past that. But shortly after this incident, my dad had returned most of the gifts that he bought us kids, and I slowly started to believe that he had changed his mind. I never confronted him about it until last year, about 14 years or so later, and I never fully accepted that he was okay now. So, I called him distraught about a separate matter, and he started talking to me about depression. He told me on his own about how he considered taking his life, and he went into detail about it. And all I could do was cry and tell him, I know. We talked a lot after that, and we are finally able to put it all to rest. I cannot imagine the constant worrying and torment that this person must have felt. And how do you talk to anybody about it, especially when you were that young? I think I probably would have done the same and just kept that all buried inside. But how awful. Like all good stories, I'm really glad that this one had a happy outcome, and eventually that the two of them were able to talk about it and move past it. Sometimes it takes years for trauma and family issues like this to get resolved, and sometimes they never do. So I'm glad to see that they embraced the opportunity to talk about it before it was too late. Story 3. I was helping my mother-in-law clean out her closet. All was jokes and laughter until I pull out an unopened, massive adult toy. And we are both paralyzed for a moment before she slowly took it out of my hands and mumbled something about the adult toy not being what she thought it would be like, and that she ordered it online. She then backed out of the room and threw it in a cupboard. We then proceeded to clean the rest of the closet. I desperately wanted to tell my partner about this awkward event, but decided to spare him. Story 4. Late to this one, but I once walked into my dad's van while he was balls deep in a woman who was not my mom. So my dad had a drinking problem, and my mom took me and my brother to go looking for him because he was supposed to be buying Christmas presents. Found his van at a bar. So my mom sends me inside the van to see if there are any presents in there. Looked back into the back of the van and saw my dad's bare butt as he was plowing some chick. He turned over his shoulder, looked right at me, and said in the most evil voice, "Get out." This was 20 plus years ago now, and I still get emotional thinking about it. I still remember the entire thing so clearly. So why do I get the feeling that the mom sort of had her concerns about what was going on in that van before she sent her kid in there? I mean, if the dad says that he is out shopping for presents, but you find the van at a bar, there's clearly not going to be any presents in that van. Which makes you think, if the mom was so suspicious, why in the heck did she send her child in there to look around? You are then knowingly sending in your child to be forever traumatized and horrified. Well played. Story 5. Back in middle school, we had this really strange gym teacher about 6'2" and ripped. Me and my friend were going to take a dump and thought that the locker room toilets would be clean, since no one used them throughout the day. When we walked in, to our left was one big shower room, and there was our gym teacher showering while eating spaghetti out of a Tupperware container. And thank God he was wearing swim trunks, but he turned around and said, "You guys aren't supposed to be here," and so we left. Story 6. I was working the night shift during post-production on a well-known reality show. I walked into the men's room and found our lady boss bent over the sink getting banged by one of the other night guys. They both looked up, we made eye contact in the mirror, and I closed the door without saying a word. I never brought it up, and she gave me the next night off for, quote, all of your hard work. Story 7. This is more heard than seen, but I was golfing with my mother's fiance when he got a phone call. He had his cell phone turned up really high, so I overheard a woman who wasn't my mother say some things, including the phrase F and suck in a seductive manner. I convinced myself that this wasn't my business or that I'd misunderstood and dropped it. And a few years later, her now husband was revealed to be a serial cheater with active partners numbering in the dozens. Yes, I still feel terrible. And yes, they're divorced. Story 8. All right, here it goes. I was in the 7th grade, so I would be almost 12. I woke up in the middle of the night and heard my mom screaming. So I jump up and get ready to defend my mom. I opened up my parents' bedroom door, and my mom was definitely not in trouble. My dad was taking her from behind. I didn't understand it at the time, but I wanted to get out of there before they noticed me. However, I fainted instead. That, my friends, is something I was definitely not supposed to see. Forever scarred. I'm 25 now, and my dad still likes to bring it up at Christmas dinner. I wonder how that conversation goes at Christmas dinner. I mean, it's not a natural thing that just comes up in conversation, like, hey, remember that time that I was pleasing your mother and making her thank God she was alive, and then you walking in on us and fainting like a little wuss? Yeah, that was hilarious. Oh, and pass me the carrots, please. Story 9. When I was 14, a friend hosted a birthday party at his house with all the parents invited. I needed to use the restroom, but the main one was occupied, so my friend told me that I could use the one in his mom's bedroom. As I walked up to the door, I could hear somebody in there, so I decided to wait until whoever was in there was finished. A good 10 minutes later, my friend's mom, who was hosting the party, and another good friend's stepfather walk out and see me standing there all confused. They asked what I was doing there, and I just said I was waiting to use the bathroom. Surprisingly, they played it pretty cool and just said I can use it now and walked off. Story 10. I worked at FedEx Express when I was getting my bachelor's degree. I was one of the first people there every morning since I was a handler and would help unload our giant metal cans off a semi. So each can was stuffed full of packages. Well, I would set up a scanner in order to scan damaged packages so our station wouldn't get charged for it since it was damaged before it arrived. Now, one morning, my manager, who was an alcoholic and a pillhead, had me scan these large bags going to the VA. Said it was in case anything was missing. And these bags were closed with a Velcro strap around the top so that they weren't very secured. These giant bags were full of pills, and it never occurred to me that anything was wrong. Except, well, one morning I arrived a little earlier than normal and setting up stuff when I heard a tearing sound. It was the Velcro coming apart. I didn't think anything about it and kept working. And after about 5 minutes, I heard a thud and looked up to see that manager come around the corner of the can and place a VA bag back onto the ground and walk off. He didn't notice that I was there since I was in between two trucks in the warehouse. After seeing that, it then made sense why he wanted me to scan the bags. The guy was and had been stealing pain medication out of the veterans' hospital bags and using them for his own addiction. So I brought it up with a coworker that had worked there forever, in which she told me just to ignore it, because unless I had hard evidence like a video or actually see him digging into the bag, if I had anything less and accused him of it, I'd surely be fired since HR gave zero craps about its employees and only protected the managers. I really hope that this guy quit his job and wasn't too tied to it for the money, because that is not a work environment that you want to be a part of if people don't do the right things for the right reasons. And worst of all, that guy was very close to being wrapped up and involved in this crime, and his coworkers would have just hung him out to dry for it. In the comments, anybody have a work story where the people that worked there just had a crappy moral compass? Story 11. My 6-year-old cousin asked me if I wanted some chewing gum. I said sure, if she has some. She then goes to her mother's purse and takes out 2 packages of condoms and asks me, "What do you want? Strawberries or bananas?" Next thing I know, I'm shoving Durex packages in my mother's purse saying, we should firstly ask your mom before going through her things. So the kid doesn't stop there. She takes the purse, goes into the kitchen where all the family was reunited and asks her mother, "Mom, can I have some gum?" Her mom says she doesn't have any, and the freaking girl takes the condoms out of the purse and says, "Sure you do. I want the strawberry ones, please." You can imagine her mother's embarrassment. Story 12. In middle school, we had a class trip to the countryside where we stayed at a fancy historical manor. and there were about 50 students and 5 chaperones present. The boy-to-girl ratio was roughly the same, so we basically divided the manor into the boy and girl halves, each with chaperones. One of the nights I got up to the bathroom and walked across a long hallway which had lots of windows. And from a certain point of view, I could see into the room where one of the female chaperones slept. She wasn't super hot or anything, but she was reasonably attractive and fairly young. I saw her looking out the window and smoking a cigarette while she was topless. And this was the first time in my life I've seen real boobies, so I just stood there, transfixed. She couldn't see me because the hallway was totally dark, so she just kept on smoking and being lost in thought. One of the male chaperones heard me leave, so after a while he got worried that maybe I got lost or was trying to sneak into the girl's half, so he came looking for me, and when he found me in the hallway, he also saw her just standing there. We both exchanged looks. He grinned and said, "Wow." I then proceeded to use the bathroom and went back to bed, and on my way back, she had already retreated into her room. And of course, being a middle school boy, I told all my friends the following morning, but at the request of the male chaperone, I left out the part where he also saw her. I became an instant hero and was made to retell the story in extreme detail for days to come. And the following night, a few of the boys tried sneaking out to also get a peek, but the male chaperone was probably expecting this and basically made sure that we just went to the bathroom and weren't idling around to catch a peep. Yeah, okay, sure, male chaperone, you're just using your power to keep the peeping off yourself, you selfish pervert. You are withholding a momentous and life-changing opportunity for these boys on their path to manhood. You can't deny them that. You never forget the first real pair that you see, that's for sure. In the comments, any guys care to share a cool story about your first look at a real bosom? Story 13. In my freshman year of college, my dorm was 5 buildings that were staggered so that some rooms were directly across from each other. So one night I came back from brushing my teeth, and I saw a girl in the room across from me getting plowed. Dude didn't even take his shirt off. Story 14. Freshman year of college, I walk into the kitchen area late at night, and there's my girlfriend sitting on the counter making out with one of my good friends. So I just left quietly without them noticing and cut off all contact with both of them. I'm pretty sure I wasn't supposed to see that. I saw them both together about 20 years later at Costco, so I guess it worked out for them. Story 15. A few days after a tornado blew into my area, I was doing yard work and came across a big old 4-inch or 5-inch thick binder filled with personal information of hundreds of people. Full names, addresses, social security numbers, what prescription drugs they were on, information about their family, freaking everything. There weren't any headers on any of the pages to indicate where they came from, and the outer pages were either missing or ruined beyond any ability to make any sense of. So I sat on it for a few days before deciding that I should take it to the police station and let them deal with it. The dude I spoke to didn't seem to get why I wasn't giving it to them before, so I had to spell it out for him what the wrong sort of person could do with this information. And then he started getting suspicious of me demanding my ID, so being a dumb 15-year-old, I just freaking booked it. Nobody followed me and no angry cop showed at my doorstep afterwards, so I guess I managed to successfully get away with being a good Samaritan. I love the logic here by the police. We think this kid is suspicious because he brought in a binder full of people's personal information. 'Cause yeah, clearly he is up to no good because like all good criminals, they turn themselves in and share their plans directly with law enforcement. And why would there be any reason for someone to turn in something like that if not for wanting to help the victims and police and protect people's identities? Story 16. One night after drinking with some mates, we decided some 3 a.m. McDonald's was the perfect closer for the night. We walked in, ordered, and sat down. We ended up sitting close enough to hear these 3 guys around their mid-60s talking about alien conspiracies. And it was quite entertaining. Well, the bladder battle of the booze struck and my friend and I had to piss, so my friend goes in first, instantly turns around super wide-eyed and just tells me to look in the last stall. I walk in, went to the handicap stall and saw the glory. There, I see a mid-60s gentleman with his pants to his ankles, holding his shirt up, peeing. Imagine Butters in his retirement years. But the crazy part is this dude made a nest of toilet paper around the toilet. I mean, around the base and up to the seat. There must have been like 3 rolls of toilet paper used. He didn't notice us and we slipped back to our table, crying from laughter and awe. The guy comes out, joins his alien friends, and they just carry on. I think I saw an actual alien that I wasn't supposed to see. Story 17. Can't really believe I'm telling this, but when I was around 18, my nan was around my family's home cleaning, which kept her busy and she got paid. And I was helping her move my parents' bed because it was too heavy for her. So we moved the bed from the wall, and then she asked to just move the bedside tables to hoover behind them, and oh, there's my mom's adult toy, so Nan let out a little surprised "oh," and I pretended not to see it and walked out of the room, and it's never been spoken about since. Story 18. Both of my parents are photographers, and they keep all their photos on the family computer. I was big into skating as a kid and was trying to find the file of some shots my mom took of me at the local skate park. My mom always picks weird names for photo albums, so I was searching through all of them that sounded like it could resemble skateboarding, and I come across a file titled, "Can You Do That?" I opened the file to see several pictures of my overweight father doing gymnastic poses naked while holding a camera. And when I say gymnastic poses, I mean he's literally doing one-armed handstands while spreading eagle up against a wall with a camera in the other hand, amongst other poses as well. So I lived with the scarring memory of this photo album for some years before I finally brought it up at Thanksgiving dinner one year. Apparently, one of my parents' friendly competitors sent a picture of her female assistant doing the splits during a wedding to get a particular shot, saying, "Can your assistant do this?" So naturally, the "Can You Do That?" album was my parents' response. Holy crap, that's funny, and I bet you didn't know your parents were savage comedians along with being photographers. And I love the relationship that those two have, that they are both comfortable enough with each other and their bodies to come up with such a hilarious idea and then flaunt it so confidently. I mean, those images should be the front page of their marketing on their website or business card, and it can read, "We will bend over backwards to get the right shot."